Malibu resident on the phone, Linda Breakstone. Linda, thanks for being with us this morning. Can you tell us how you're doing?
Well, we were up all night long. The scariest time was between 3 and 4 when the choppers were grounded. There were embers flying all over these properties up here. And I was literally going from house to house because a lot of residents did leave, getting their garden hoses and putting out their little fires.
Can you talk about where you're located that was happening with all the embers?
Yeah, I am across Malibu Canyon from Pepperdine, straight across. I can see it from here, and about 1 mile up, right above the Malibu Colony.
Okay, so we're having a little bit of a spotty connection with you, but you were a journalist for a long time, or have been. What stood out to you about this, not only as a resident of Malibu, but also as someone who I'm sure has reported on fires before?
The biggest thing is there were not enough fire trucks. I've covered all these fires in Malibu, and there's always a ton of fire trucks, and they just didn't have any. I live off of
It sounds like we're having a little bit of an issue with the connection there with Linda Breakstone. Do we have you back? You're breaking up just a bit. I think we're going to have to let Linda go, but we appreciate that she was calling in and letting us know kind of what the situation was in her neighborhood. She felt that there was not enough fire trucks and that there was not enough personnel. We have learned this morning that there are 700 firefighters assigned to this fire, and as much of it on the ground. But as we've been watching these incredible pictures of just the air support.
And that, by the way, has been an issue. We've been trying to get some other people on the phone in the area as well, and their calls are breaking up too. A lot of people have lost Wi-Fi. They didn't have power throughout the night. So it sounds like communication is a little bit of an issue right now for the people directly in the path of this fire.
Yeah, and that's Malibu is problematic anyway sometimes. I know I have two phones. I have a work phone, I have a personal phone, and even personally going out to Malibu when nothing's going on, one will work and the other one will not, depending on the carrier. So you have that situation, you have power outages, as you said, and all those types of things to the communication system. We know that some sheriff's deputies were going door to door to evacuate people as well, because people had not gotten alerts through, because this did happen in the overnight hours. As Linda was saying, the scariest part of this fire, it sounds like for most people we've talked to this morning, was between 3 and 4 a.m. when those air support was not able to fly at that point in time. And I can tell you that's right around when I was first on air this morning, and it did explode. The fire really went from, it was a few hundred acres, and then suddenly just started ramping up. You could see that it went from about 800 acres to 1,800 acres in just a very, very short period of time. We're now at 2,200 acres this morning. We now have LA County Sheriff Robert Luna on the phone with us this morning. Thank you so much for being with us, Sheriff.
Good morning.
We did hear you
Good
speak.
morning. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. There's a little bit of a delay, so we apologize that there might be a little bit of back and forth for people here, but we'll try to get to it. We heard you talking in the press conference this morning about, I want to get to, you said a patrol car was damaged, and also I think one of the bigger pieces is just moving forward, your tough stance on if bad actors plan to go to the area.
Yeah, obviously one of our primary missions here are evacuations, and once we evacuate our community members, is they want to make sure that their homes are secure. So we will have many of our uniformed deputies, and some maybe not in uniform, that'll keep an eye on people's residences. So if there is somebody out there who thinks they're going to come here and take advantage of any of our residents that have gone through so much in the last 24 hours, huge mistake. We're going to catch you, we're going to arrest you, and try and get you prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
And we know sometimes this is kind of a disincentive for people to leave their homes. We've seen this in emergencies in the past where people are worried about the security of their property and then they refuse to leave. But it sounds like people have been heeding the evacuation, the mandatory evacuations and the evacuation warnings. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We're really proud of our residents here in Malibu that when the deputies were going out and notifying them through different means, that our understanding is that everybody heeded to those warnings and we were able to get everybody out safely. And I think you mentioned it, we had a black and white police car burn in this fire, and that just shows you the unpredictability of these fires and the winds and how quickly things can shift. So I think the fact that we're sitting here proudly saying that no lives were lost is that contributes to our partnership with the community.
Well, I'm glad you touched on that, because in the press conference we said that the patrol car had been damaged, so it was damaged by fire. So that officer really in a tricky situation overnight.
Yeah, these first responders, deputy sheriffs, firefighters put their lives on the line to protect life and property out here. And just so quickly that his black and white vehicle started to burn. Thank God he was able to get away from it, and he's safe. He's going to go home to his family this morning.
Yeah, that's a lot to be grateful for. Can you talk about the timing of this, that it happened in the dark overnight, and whether that helped or hurt your efforts and those of your deputies who are going door to door trying to get people out?
Yeah, when we were having our planning conference calls, even yet up to yesterday in the morning, as a county family, whether it was county fire, the Office of Emergency Management, the Sheriff's Department, we talked about the fact that the wind was forecasted to come in overnight. So we were prepared with extra resources here. We talked about it in briefings. So, for example, our Lost Hills Malibu station, the leadership there with Captain Seatel's great, had her people prepared, and we were here quickly and able to do all the evacuations as the working with the fire department, and that was great. But can you think about this, getting these alerts at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning? It is a challenge. So we made sure that residents were prepared to evacuate, which means important paperwork, medications, all those important things that you can carry with you, that if for some, God forbid that you lose your home, that you can be away from your home for weeks or months at a time.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable how prepared it seems people were. I know it's very early on in the investigation, but Chief Anthony Maroney talking about how he is going to be partnering with your agency as well as arson investigators to figure out how this fire started. Is there any detail that you've learned that you can share?
Not yet. It's we're primarily concerned about getting the fire under control, evacuations, and making sure the right people are getting in here and not the wrong people. Once that's all done, our arson and explosives investigators, along with the LA County Fire arson investigators, they are really good at what they do. They'll get to the bottom of how this started. I really hope that it wasn't a human hand that did this and maybe something else, but I would just be speculating at this point, but we intend to find out.
And, we've been talking about the fire danger and the winds and the conditions, the weather conditions, at least through 8 p.m. tomorrow. And of course, you're in charge of the whole county. You have so many resources just tackling this fire. But are you concerned that other fires might break out and you might have to kind of share the resources with other places?
Yes, we're always concerned because these weather conditions affect not only the entire county of Los Angeles, but our neighbors to the north, Ventura, Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County, and we're always prepared for mutual aid. We have an amazing regional partnership here, but we have enough resources to spread around in emergencies like this, so we'll make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse, communicating with all of our law enforcement partners, fire partners, and we're ready to respond and assist any community, specifically here in Los Angeles County.
Can you talk about how important those partnerships are? We're seeing all of the aircraft dumping water and fire retardant. We were told very early this morning that Orange County and Ventura County immediately activated and was able to come in and help. Just how important is it to have those types of partnerships?
It is absolutely critical. None of us can be successful on our own, whether it's the law side or the fire side. And it's extraordinary to be out here since the early hours and look at all the different vehicles from the different agencies, the uniforms, but everybody is on the same page. We're communicating, we're coordinating, and you can just tell by being here, this isn't the first time these men and women were working with each other. They work together on so many incidences, and that really benefits every community member, whether it is for a fire, as we were reminded last week with the 7.0 earthquake up in Northern California. We have to be always ready for that or anything else that may strike us. And I got to tell you, I believe that our first responders here, deputy sheriffs, police officers, firefighters here in our region are the best in the world. And we're very fortunate to have them all and their level of commitment and passion to do what they do.
Absolutely. I think so many thousands of people are so grateful for all of your service and everything you all are doing right now. We've talked to at least 3 or 4 people this morning who are in Malibu who have had really bad cell service, and the communications have been an issue. Their Wi-Fi is down. A lot of them don't have power. I know that these warning and the alert systems have gone out, and there's been huge progress on those. But are you concerned about a lack of communication?
Yes, anytime we cannot communicate with each other or our community members, it does create a challenge. I can tell you this, that when I arrived here at the command post, I had no cell phone service. And when we were inquiring as to how that happened, it looks like the fire took out one of the cell phone towers here in this vicinity. So that immediately we were challenged. But, you know, we have backup systems. Redundancy systems, and we were immediately able to log on to the internet here and do some different things, and I can be reconnected with everybody I needed to talk to, including in our agency, fire. So we are going to have to be patient. We'll work with our private partners, non-governmental agencies, to make sure that we connect our community back with cell phone service. That becomes very important, because if somebody who lives here is not communicating with their family that is out of town, they want to know if they're okay. And I'll give you an example. Pepperdine. Pepperdine is right in the middle of this affected area. I can't tell you how many people we've had calling from across the country that have their students, their children at Pepperdine, and they were sheltering in place, and they want to make sure they're okay, just as any of us as parents would be concerned about that. And I got to tell you, I got a call from the Pepperdine administrator at 2:30 this morning, because they wanted to make sure that we were going to be available to assist. And I got a follow-up call, and they're very happy with the service that they've received from both the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and County Fire.
Yeah, they did say that when we talked to them. We did speak with the public information representative there at Pepperdine. We know that also some community members have been going to Pepperdine. We talked to a student who said it's not just Pepperdine students sheltering in place at the library, it's also people from Malibu, from the community.
Yeah, I've heard that too. But you know what? It doesn't surprise me, because every time I've been to this community when there's not emergencies, obviously we come here when there's emergencies, this is a very close-knit community. They've been through a lot over the last several decades with fires and other things, so they know to depend on each other. So you'll hear these stories of a total commitment, being good neighbors and good partners, and that helps us in as a first responder a lot with what we do. I'm very proud to serve this community.
Yeah, you sometimes forget it's just 11,000 people in such a big area. LA County Sheriff Robert Luna, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning and taking us through what has been a very long night for you and all of your officers.
Yeah, thank you so much for covering this story and getting it out to our community. Thank you very much, and have an awesome day.
You too.
You too.
Thank you. Let's get to Mark Liu now at the assignment desk, is going to take us through some new information. Mark?
Yeah, that's right, Jamie and Rudabay. So this fire now greater than 2,200 acres and is now large enough and has a large enough infrared signature that heat sensing satellites can see it from space. What you're looking at here on the right side of your screen is the website called FIRMS. It's the Fire Information for Resource Management System. And this is the Malibu area here where the fire is. And I'm going to slide up the opacity and see right there These are all individual heat signatures from the Franklin fire that have been detected by satellites that can use infrared imaging, and you can see just how large this infrared signature of this fire is. I can show you when I zoom it out. When I fade it out, you can see that's the community of Malibu there. And then these yellow areas, this is older heat signatures from about the last 6 to 12 hours. These darker colored ones, these are infrared signatures that are newer, which indicates that the flank of the fire is indeed moving to the east, and there's a little bit up here moving to the north. Now, this exactly matches the footprint of the fire from the evacuation zone area. You can see it right there. This is what we've been looking at all morning, and we've been talking about how the fire is moving this way and to the north. Now, SkyCal is now on the northern end of the fire, and we now, if I can bring you to live pictures of SkyCal, we got a Type 1 air tanker, an Erickson aero tanker on camera right there. This is a very large aircraft, and it is going to be doing fire retardant drops here in the area, along with those super scoopers and a slightly smaller British Aerospace 146 tanker that's in from Fox Field. So now 4 fixed wing aircraft are fighting this fire, along with 5 helicopters, all doing the continuous work of putting both water and retardant on this fire. A little bit earlier, we had seen those those water dropping helicopters reloading their water tanks over at Helispot 69. I just checked in. There's nobody there right now, so we don't get to see them do that again. But what you're looking at here is the northern flank of the fire near Piuma Road. There's homes in this area, but they're far sparser than they were on the southern end over by, of course, Malibu City Hall and Pacific Coast Highway. But there are homes in this area, certainly off down near the lower part of Piuma Road. And as SkyCal continues to look through this area and watch as this very large air tanker here is going to be doing perhaps a fire retardant drop, once they spot their target, they'll do that, and then they'll go and reload again. This is a continual aerial attack in this area because really down near the northern flank of the fire, there aren't many good fire roads or ways for the hand crews to get in there. So this is going to be pretty much an aerial attack while they try and slow down this flank. And there it is, a very large drop. I think that's 3,000 to 4,000 gallons from one of those air tankers there, and they're going to drop that line and hopefully stop the spread of the fire to the north, because there is a lot of terrain that it has to cover. But if it continues to move to the north, it's going to impact the community of Montanito. That is south of the 101, and then of course it could keep going all the way up to the 101, but that's about a good 20 miles away. Hopefully they'll stop it before it gets there.
It is incredible when you think about the amount of weight of water that's in those planes, and then they dump it, and then they have to, quickly get out of there. It's incredible, the work that they do. Mark, thank you for that. We now want to get to Hans Letz, the owner and general manager at Radio Malibu. He is in one of the areas that is under an evacuation warning. Hans, are you okay? And did you stay behind?
Oh, yeah. We've been on the air now for, since 11 o'clock last night, yes.
And how are you doing?
Oh, I'm tired, but my wife is getting exhausted running around buying gasoline for generators and keeping the station on the air. We're a very small operation.
Well, you are a small operation, but you're one that the community counts on, and obviously you stayed there to give people information throughout the night. Can you take us through what your night was like?
Well, it was eerie because we've had fires like this at that time of night before, and it's like, here we go again. And we know what to expect. I've been in Malibu for 25 years. In fact, we had a fire here in 2007 that was identical. It even started at the exact same place and went down Malibu Canyon to Sarah Estates to the same houses that got threatened last night. And that fire was also a big one. It took out about 40 houses, that one did. We don't know how many on this one, of course. And that fire, 2007, it took 2 days to put out. And it was caused by overloaded power poles that the power company and the cell phone companies admitted to eventually. And they ended up paying a big fine. Now, we don't know what caused this one, of course. It could have been anything. But this one fit that exact pattern. It behaved exactly the same way.
Well, we know arson investigators are involved. It's, of course, at the very preliminary stages, and right now they're focused on saving people's lives and property and trying to put the flames out. But as someone who's reported in this little community for so long, it was a bedroom community for over 2 decades now, what questions are you asking and what's standing out to you?
Well, the response has been superb. Malibu had the luck of having the only major fire in California that's happening today, so we're getting our pick of the aircraft, and the fire commanders are able to bring in these magnificent aircraft that saved our bacon overnight. There was also an enormous number of fire trucks that weren't. This was very dissimilar to what happened in 2018 when the Woolsey fire hit us, and the fire came in from the north, and every fire truck in Southern California went to the 101 freeway and made a last stand over there. And when the fire jumped the 101 at 5:15 that morning, we knew we were toast, and we were. We didn't have any fire trucks that time, not one.
Yeah.
This time it was the exact polar opposite, and we're very, very lucky and thankful.
Well, and that's, we do keep talking about it today, Hans, because the fear is the Santa Ana winds, as you've even reported, I see on your blog on the Radio Malibu website, they're going to be in effect until tomorrow. The concern is that we could see something pop up somewhere else, and then the resources are diverted, which is then impacts you in Malibu and wherever the next fire breaks out.
Absolutely, and the additional forces, those big helicopters that Edison paid for, make a huge difference. There's three of them. There's one in Ventura County, one in LA County, and one in Orange County, and they work in unified command, and those make such a difference. And the difference between those weren't here in 2018 when we lost all those. Malibu lost 480 houses in 2018 out of the 1,600 that burned in Ventura County and LA County. They all burned in my neighborhood, and it was a body blow that Malibu has not recovered from. The families moved away. The school enrollment at Malibu High School and the elementary schools plummeted, and we're only now beginning to recover from that. And the investments that have been made sure are paying off, and we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's really interesting context and color you're providing about the history of Malibu. We know insurance has been a huge issue in any kind of fire-prone areas, especially in California and especially in that area. Do you know anything about that and what that might look like going forward?
Well, I can tell you this, that we lost 480 houses in 6 years ago. Not one of those houses had been built after fire codes were tightened in the year, I think it was 2001. I'm not sure on that. But the state fire codes were tightened, and there were no more attic vents and no more decks made out of flammable wood attached to houses and things like that. And when insurance companies are writing policies now, they're talking about making homeowners do that to prevent fires. And the fire codes now are so much stronger that type of losing 480 houses, those were all old houses. All the new ones in our neighborhood, they made it. Now, my house is 60 years old. And when I bought it, being a TV news assignment editor at the time, I was, I retrofitted it. I put in concrete walls where there was stucco, and I sealed everything up. And when the fire hit the house, we were able to repel it. It worked.
Wow, that's really interesting context there. I do have friends who live in Malibu, and you think back to the Woolsey fire, there was thick vegetation back then. We had so many years of drought, and it was so dry, things just kind of went up like a tinderbox. The last couple years, we've been pretty lucky to have the amount of rainfall that we have, but I've heard my friends say that also concerned them because the vegetation has come back just so thick.
Absolutely. It's a thick mat of grass. Out my back field, there's a mountain that used to be covered with what one fire department, what fire chief called it, megatons of wood, megatons of fuel. And that's all gone. But what's been replaced with is this thick mat of weeds and brush that won't burn as hot, but burns faster. Now, what's burning today is not the same thing, because Woolsey fire is not the same area. And the area that's burning right now has burned before, but not that recently. And I think this area burned in '93. I'm not sure of that, but it was a long time ago. And so there's a lot of fuel up there too. But you know, if you're smart, if you do brush clearance, if you build a house correctly, if you don't put up stupid things like eucalyptus trees or wood stake fences next to your house, you can make it here.
Well, it is such an amazing community, and obviously very, very expensive properties in this community. That's kind of one thing that, you know, Malibu is known for. It has some of the most expensive real estate in the world.
Yeah, well, some of us snuck in because we couldn't afford houses in West LA on a Simon Editor's pay.
Hans Letts, thank you on that note for being with us this morning. We appreciate it, and you've provided a lot of great context just for the area and previous fires and things. So thank you for being here.
Good luck to all of us.
Yes. All right. Well, you are taking a live look as we continue to see that billowing smoke come up from some of the hillsides there, as we just heard Hans Letts, the general manager of Radio Malibu, talk about how this particular area hasn't seen fire in a while, so there is a lot of vegetation there. We now want to go to meteorologist Paul Deanna to talk about some of these conditions and what we're looking at later today.
Hey guys, good morning to you. Good morning to you at home watching this fire burn in Malibu. Just to give you perspective of what 2,200 acres, how big that is. 1 acre is roughly the size of 1 football field. So areas that have burned since 11 o'clock last night encompass the space that would be taken up by 2,200 football fields. That is a big amount of space. 2 timelines that we're working on for this fire. 1, the timeline for the wind, and 2, the timeline for the super dry air, the desert dry air that is over Southern California. I'm talking about them separately because they have separate timelines. The peak of the winds will likely be from now through 11 o'clock this morning. Winds will very gradually relax but still be elevated this afternoon and this evening. So the wind concern is mainly a today concern. The wind direction concern, because our source of air is coming from the deserts of Nevada and inland California, that's a problem that's going to last until tomorrow night, because the relative humidity is going to stay down near 5 to 10%. That is super dry air, drier than Phoenix is right now. That's going to keep the fire danger high. Even when the winds die down to like 10, 15, 20 miles per hour, fire danger will still be critical into Wednesday and Wednesday night, because the relative humidity will stay super low. So 2 different timelines. That's why the red flag warning is in effect through Wednesday evening. And as much as we will continue to talk about the active fire that is burning right now, fire conditions have not changed and they have not improved for the rest of Southern California. So new fires could start and spread rapidly because the weather conditions are still critically bad for fire danger in the Inland Empire, in inland Orange County, in inland Los Angeles County, and all of eastern Ventura County. So yes, 1 fire has started and spread rapidly. There are many other places, including San Bernardino, Lake Elsinore, Temecula, Irvine, the San Fernando Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, eastern Ventura County, where it burned last month. Those areas still have the damaging winds and still have the very low humidity through tomorrow. So this is kind of the opening chapter of the story of this fire event, in that it's going to be tomorrow night before the fire danger gets back to normal. High wind warning, that's today. That lasts through this afternoon. Winds could still gust 50 to 70 miles per hour this morning and then gradually relax this afternoon. That's all of eastern Ventura County. That's Simi Valley, that's Thousand Oaks, Newbury Park, west of Camarillo, north and east of Santa Clarita, and it does include the Malibu coastline and the Santa Monica Mountains. That's the area that's been burning right now. As for the peak wind gusts thus far, the San Gabriel Mountains, they stick into the sky the highest. They have the highest elevation, so typically the strongest wind. 82 miles per hour there. Chino Hills, 65 miles per hour. That's significant. Ontario at the airport, 55 miles per hour. Porter Ranch, 53. And the Malibu Hills, 52. That's on the bottom of the list. But wind doesn't start fires. Wind will spread a fire that has been started most of the time by people. 98% of fires are started by people, not by the weather. Lightning would be the other 2%. So Malibu Hills hasn't had the strongest winds, but 52 miles an hour can make a small fire a very big fire. As for the general area of the worst winds, that would be Simi Valley, Moore Park, and Camarillo, just like last month. But the fire was there last month. This time, it's down toward Malibu, where the winds are strong but they're not the strongest that we've seen. Malibu Hills right now about 29 miles per hour. Malibu Vista 29 miles per hour. We're seeing some isolated gusts to 40 miles per hour, and the relative humidity is still very low, 5 to 10%. As for your forecast for today, the last graphic I'm going to show you before we go back to these live pictures. Valleys today, high wind warning, 73 degrees, high fire danger. The metro area of Los Angeles County, not as windy, 72. 70 for the Inland Empire, and 52 degrees for a high today for the high desert. Can we take that live picture full and lose the weather graphics? I want to talk about a couple things here. One, if you see individual trees on the ridgetops, that wind is whipping pretty strong. We've seen some palm trees just blowing around like we saw in Camarillo last month. Two, look at that perspective. Off in the distance, those are the west-facing LA beaches. We're looking out towards Santa Monica there. But in the foreground, this is Malibu, and you can clearly see the wind coming from the north and northeast, pushing that smoke out to sea. And you can also see that we are getting a little bit of vertical build in the smoke. Last month, that smoke was completely hugging the ground because the winds were 70 miles per hour. In this case, they're still very strong, but they're not 70 miles per hour. It's about 40 miles per hour, which gives the opportunity for some of those embers to go up before they hug the ground, hit another tree, and spread the fire. But you can see that one ridgetop running east to west is just torched right now, and plenty of new flames and no roads, guys. This is desolate territory out here. There are no roads to drive up a fire truck. This is all an aerial attack to get these flames out. There's nowhere for a fire truck to go in places like this. Back to you.
Well, that's why we're so lucky we can have the aircraft up right now, because I've seen where hand crews have had to go in, just to try to get things under control, and the terrain is just so hard on the firefighters and so dangerous. So we are lucky that the aircraft are able to fly at this point in time and put that retardant and water down.
And when we talk about the terrain, it's, a lot of these places do have a road, but maybe it's just one road.
Yeah.
And that can be, or a dead end. And that can be really difficult too in terms of access and in terms of people trying to get out while fire engines and other emergency vehicles are there as well. Tina Patel is on the ground for us in Malibu. Look at this air, but Tina is on the ground for us. So Tina, what's the latest from where you are?
Yeah, we're on PCH on the far south end of Malibu, and part of the reason we're here is because where the fire is really burning is in a lot of those canyon areas where it's hard to access and hard to get communication out. Where we are, you can see that there are a number of fire crews that are staged here. We're seeing this kind of up and down the coastline of Malibu. There are fire crews that have come in from all across Southern California helping in this firefight, ready to kind of take over when some crews need to come off because they've been working for so many hours now. If we pan up into the sky, you can see there is just a lot of smoke. But the good news about that smoke is that means that the winds actually have died down. Like earlier this morning, you could see the direction of the wind. Now that we're just seeing kind of that smoke sort of sitting over there, that means that we are not dealing with the heavy winds that we were dealing with earlier. And that's why we actually have been watching a lot of aircraft attacking this fire. We've seen helicopters. We've seen the large fixed-wing aircraft. They're being very aggressive with that fire. And that's what people who live in this area are happy to see, that this is being taken seriously and that there's basically resources from all over the state helping fight this fire. What was really scary for a lot of people was the fact that the fire started so late last night. Most people were home. They were asleep. It was very little notice that they were given that they had to evacuate. We talked to one woman in the Sarah Retreat neighborhood about what she saw when she was trying to get out and trying to figure out where was safe to go. Listen to this.
It's happening so quickly. I'm worried about 2 horses that I left in there. I know the house is gone. I went back in there and to try to find the horses, but it was too dangerous. We had to just get out of there as quickly as we could and follow the sheriff's out. And I was able to save 1 horse. I got the family out of the house, and this is where I'm at. I was trying to get to Point Doom right now, and the road is closed because of the fire from Pepperdine.
As we come back out here live, one of the things I will tell you is there are a lot of people here who were concerned about their animals. That was why they were kind of taking a little bit of time to evacuate, because they weren't sure exactly what they could pack up and where they could go. But what we are hearing from the Sheriff's Department is that most people did heed those evacuation warnings. They tell us, we talked to a number of people here in Malibu who say they have lived through fires before. They know how devastating they are, and they know how many areas in this community are those sort of one way in, one way out. So when they saw the fire and knew it was close to them, they really did take that chance to get everything packed up and get out of the way. And actually, just a few minutes ago, we talked to another woman who said she has a lot of farm animals in her vehicle. They're off of the property. They're still kind of on standby mode, but she said that was kind of step one, was to at least get them out there. Again, what we're seeing right now, no wind. Firefighters really taking advantage of that, hoping that they can get the upper hand. But we don't know what the conditions are going to be like as the day goes on. And that's why all the evacuation orders that we've been telling you about all morning, they are still in place. There is closures on PCH. You can't even really get into the Malibu area right now. If you're not in there, firefighters just want to keep as many people out and as many people safe as they can, because they don't know what the conditions are going to be like as the day goes on. So if you are not in this area currently, stay out, let firefighters do what they can, and hopefully they'll be able to get an upper hand, and then they'll be able to let people back in when it's safe. We'll send it back to you.
Well, that's Tina. Before I let you go, I have to say, you know, this happened at such a terrible time, as you're talking about, but it really seems that not just the firefighters, but homeowners were really prepared this time.
Yeah, you know, like we were saying, there have been a number of fires in Malibu, and not just in Malibu, but other parts of Southern California. There's some people who say that they haven't experienced fire here, but they've experienced other fires in Southern California. So I think that one of the things that has gotten through is when we hear about those Santa Ana conditions, I think people do pay attention. So as much as we didn't know if there was going to be a fire, when it might spark, I think people were aware that we were expecting these kinds of winds this week. And so then when they did hear, okay, it is in Malibu, they took that seriously. And I hate that we are living in Southern California and that we all kind of have to have that mindset, but we've seen how quickly these fires grow. I mean, when I got the call around midnight, and at that time it was, you know, maybe a couple hundred acres, and now we're talking over 2,000 acres. It changed really quickly. And what we also were talking to people this morning is that they thought the fire was in one area, so it was safe to evacuate to this part of Malibu. And then by the time they got all loaded up, that part of Malibu was also on fire, and so they had to figure out a different place to go. I think that's the reason we also tell everybody that when you get those evacuation orders, take them seriously and don't wait, because the situation does change, and you might get that first order and it might be safe at that point. It might not be safe if you wait 20, 30, 40 minutes. So we're glad from what we were hearing this morning that most people did the safe thing, that they got out of the way, that we're not hearing about any injuries. Hopefully that will be the case as the day goes on. We are going to hear about some damage, but every time we talk to firefighters, every time we talk to law enforcement, they say homes can be replaced, people cannot be, and that is always the message they want to get across.
Yeah, and you made some very good points. Tina, thank you. Where Tina's standing, she was just talking about how PCH is still shut down. There's a number of other road closures. We want to get to Amanda Starantino now for a look at what's happening out on the roadways. Amanda?
Hey, good morning. So yes, PCH has been closed down throughout the morning because of the Franklin fire. It's closed between Canaan Doom and Topanga Canyon. So that road completely closed right now. You can't access it. If you are going to be coming, trying to get pretty much north on PCH, you're not going to be able to go when coming from Santa Monica, Pacific Palisades. You're just going to have to turn right back around and go back down south. So from here, you're going to be taking the 101 instead. That's going to be your alternate route. So the southbound 101 from Parkway Calabasas to the 405, about an hour and 2 minutes. A lot of slowdown there with people trying to get around what's going on in Malibu. So there are some other closures going on as well. So Malibu Canyon, that turns into Las Virgenes between PCH and Mulholland, that is also closed right now, causing some more delays. We also have another closure. Now, this was actually set before the fire even happened because of the red flag warning. There was a fire danger closure at Topanga Canyon between PCH and Mulholland. That road is also closed. So if you're going to be getting around that area, you're going to need to take the 405. So southbound 405 from the 118 to Sunset Boulevard, it's going to take you about an hour and 8 minutes to get around there. So some slowdowns, but that's going to be what you want to do. Also, if you want to get around this area, you're going to take the 405. If you want to go east, that's going to be your east alternate. For your west alternate on the other side, you can take Canaan or Decker as well. So a few options there, but really just stay out of the Malibu area as much as you can. Go up to the 101 to get around that, as the firefighters are just trying to do the best they can to contain this fire. Back to you guys.
Working very hard there. Amanda, thank you so much. And Rick Montanez is on the ground. You had a couple kind of close calls, Rick, where you had to move right away, and then the place where you were standing was devoured by flames minutes later.
Yeah, and we're back to those areas. You know, we keep a close eye on what is happening around us so we don't end up getting ourselves into too much danger. because of course our safety is important as well. But what you're talking about is down here behind us in this open field. This is right near Malibu City Hall, and all of that was on fire in the 5 and 6 o'clock hours this morning, and the winds were pushing it out toward PCH, and that is what happened. We were here, we felt the wind blowing, the embers, we started to see them flow, and so we knew we had to get out of the way. And as soon as we did, within minutes, the flames had reached here toward the street where you see all those palm trees and everything, the thick brush that really started to burn. And then firefighters came in quickly to rush and put that out. I want to see if Sparkle, so she's showing us here, this apartment or condo complex here. This is Malibu Canyon Village. And the fire burned right up to it, but stopped before it reached those condos, which is so fortunate for all of the people who live here. One of the residents was just telling me that they, of course, had problems with their fire insurance, and what was covered was severely reduced in the last few years. So he was saying if these condos had caught fire.
Okay, it looks like we lost Rick there, and we've been talking about this. Communication has been spotty, signals have been dropping, and cell phone service has not been the greatest either. So, Mark, you are keeping an eye on all the firefighting efforts, looking at so much information. What's the latest?
Yeah, so, there was a news conference. It was just about an hour and 45 minutes ago. The LA County Fire Chief talked about how their firefighters are utilizing both hand crews and, of course, a lot of aerial assets. The cause of this fire is still under investigation. Started last night at around 11. Here in the center of your screen near Malibu Canyon Road and the tunnel, LA County fire sheriffs and sheriff's deputies from their arson investigators are trying to track down the exact start of this fire, but really the priority is getting this fire extinguished first. Now, what you're looking at here is the scope of the fire so far this morning. The yellow areas, we're going to call those the voluntary evacuation areas surrounding this fire in the community of Malibu, all the way from Point Dune to Pacific Palisades. And of course, the red area, these are the mandatory evacuations. Central Malibu, including Pepperdine University, which had a shelter in place order, that has now been lifted. This community here has some damage. Some structures were destroyed to the north of the Malibu City Hall up here on Palm Canyon Lane, and also Cross Creek. We did see with KCAL some homes that were burned here. And of course, these areas here of Sweetwater Canyon, there was some structure protection going on there. Now, the better part of the eastern flank of the fire is being attacked pretty severely with water dropping helicopters. Here, it continues to move to the east, but it's not as bad as what we were seeing with KCAL in the north. Up here near Piuma Road, the northern flank here, lots of billowing white smoke in this area. This is an area of concern only because they can't get hand crews in here. There's really not any good fire access roads. You don't want to go on Malibu Canyon because it's really only one way in and one way out. So it's really been the priority of water dropping helicopters in this area as the flank of northern flank of this fire moves to the north. Now, I also want to take a look here at some, this is a time lapse from Topanga Peak of the fire over about the last 15 or 20 minutes or so. You can see the white smoke here coming up from the side of the mountain. This is to the north, and you can see there's a lot of smoke, but not tremendously high flame lengths. That's a really good sign there. And then what we're looking at here is the immense amount of aerial aircraft here right over to the left. These are the Coulson Aviation large heli-tankers that are dropping about 3,000 gallons each. And then we have a couple of spotter aircraft. You can see these big circles. This is what this pilot has had to do over and over throughout the morning, basically circle this fire and call out commands to all of the aircraft about making sure that they don't hit other aircraft that are in the area and do those water drops. And then we've got this guy. This is a really large air tanker. This is a British Aerospace 146. This one drops about 3,000 gallons, and it's going all the way back up to Fox Field. I'll zoom out. It's got to go all the way back north here to Fox Field in order to land and get more retardant. But these are the aerial assets that are at the fire right now, trying to get this fire under control. Certainly on the northern flank, still 0% containment, and more than 700 firefighters, I think was what they said, on the fire line from 4 different counties. LA County, Ventura County, City of LA, and also Orange County all have assets here. But this firefight continues out there this morning, 0% containment as this fire burns through this area of Malibu to the north. If it keeps going, it's going to end up in the communities of Calabasas and possibly Agoura Hills.
All right, Mark, thank you. And when we look at this map, Pepperdine University is kind of in the middle of that area. It has since lifted its shelter in place order, but it's still encouraging people, the students who have been there and possibly staff, to remain on campus and stay off the roads because they can get very congested when you're talking about all of these people, thousands of people evacuating Malibu on just the 21-mile stretch of PCH, 6 miles of which has been closed down right now. So just best to stay away from this area. Pepperdine does have also a long history and a very established protocol working with the LA County Fire Department. They also have their own fire department on campus. And so luckily that campus has been spared, but it was very close call because it was really surrounded by all the flames.
Yeah, seeing some of the pictures where the hot spots had come right up to the window of the library where people were sheltering in place. But students saying they felt safe. They're grateful that finals have been canceled, at least for the time being. At this point in time, it was really remarkable to see those aircraft maps that Mark pulled up too. You've got 700 firefighters assigned to this fire at this point, and almost 1,000 could be called in at various points. Here's that map again. It's incredible to see the work that they're doing and staying safe out there themselves, as Mark was talking about, trying to keep them out of each other's way as they continue to do this firefight. Let's go ahead and bring in meteorologist Paul Diano to talk about some of the conditions. We're lucky that the conditions are allowing these aircraft to fly, Paul.
Yeah, that's good because remember, a month ago wasn't the case because the winds were too strong. Now, often we see the fire and the worst fire weather happening where the fire actually is. As bad as it is in Malibu, and it is bad, I'm not minimizing that, it's not the bullseye. The bullseye of the strongest winds going on right now is the same spot that we saw last month. Why? Because the chess pieces in the atmosphere are in the same place. So if you get more of a north wind, it's not eastern Ventura County that gets the worst of the winds. Usually it's over towards Santa Clarita and points east. When you get more of an easterly component to a Santa Ana wind event, it is Ventura County and western LA County. Look at these winds. Simi Valley 54 miles per hour, Moore Park 56, Camarillo 56. Malibu right now is down into the teens and 20s. That's still a problem. That can still move a fire quickly. But I'm so thankful that the 55-mile-per-hour winds are not over Malibu. They were overnight. That's why the fire spread so quickly. Well, the winds are still gusting in a few isolated spots up to about 40 miles per hour. That's still a big problem. But there's a big difference between these winds and the winds we're seeing just about 20 miles away in Camarillo and also Moore Park, where the winds right now are 50 to 60 miles per hour. Just goes to show that wind doesn't create the fire. Wind can help spread a fire. The fire is burning in a place where the winds aren't the worst. So what we can expect moving forward, we're coming up on 10 o'clock. That's good news because the peak of the winds are between 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock. We're about 3/4 of the way through. We're entering the 4th quarter of that time period. So until about 11 o'clock this morning, the worst of the winds, then the winds will slowly ramp down. That's a process that'll take 12 to 18 hours. So the winds will still be elevated this afternoon, this evening, even overnight tonight in the mountains. The problem is for tomorrow, even as the winds go back to what we would just call a breezy day, it's still coming from the desert. It's still an offshore wind, so relative humidity stays really low tomorrow. So the fire danger will stay really high tomorrow, even as the worst of the winds will be gone. And it's not just Malibu. That's where the fire is burning. It's not just eastern Ventura County. That's where we have the strongest winds. The combination of breezy to gusty conditions and critically low relative humidity is happening almost everywhere in Southern California. So we could see new fire starts and rapid fire spread in a lot of other places today or tomorrow. We hope it doesn't happen, but it might. Inland Empire, you are under a red flag warning. The San Gabriels, San Jacintos, San Bernardinos, all of eastern Ventura County, San Fernando Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, you're all under a red flag warning until tomorrow evening. Now, the worst of the wind today, specifically this morning, but the high wind warning lasts until this afternoon. That's Ventura County and western LA County, including Malibu, the Malibu Hills, into the Conejo Valley of eastern Ventura County, Simi Valley in the 118 corridor, the Santa Clarita Valley up through the Grapevine in the 5, and also the 14 hopping over into the Antelope Valley. Very windy this morning, still windy this afternoon. High temperatures today will make it into the low 70s in many locations. Notice we're not mentioning the city of Los Angeles. Santa Ana wind events rarely impact you adversely. It'll be breezy in the city. That's about it. High of 72 degrees. Valley 73, Inland Empire 70. Let's take a look at the problem. Why we get Santa Ana wind events. Big ridge on one side of us. Big low pressure area deepening and strengthening over the Utah and northern Arizona region, kind of close to the Grand Canyon, and we're just kind of caught right in between. And when we get a low pressure area strong enough to our east, the counterclockwise flow around it gives us a wind coming from the deserts. Not only does the wind get really strong, that air is super, super dry, and the combination of those two makes our fire danger go from almost nothing to astronomical in just a couple hours when that dry wind moves in. Let's get rid of me and take this map full. I want to talk a little bit about the fire going on right now and the conditions. I'll step out of the way. Let's take the chopper shot if we can. We see a vertical build, guys, to those clouds. That's wonderful news, because last month, none of that smoke was able to vent upward because the wind was 70 miles per hour. It was hugging the ground, and that was a huge problem because all of the embers were also hugging the ground. And then they were moving at 50 or 60 miles per hour, which meant the next tree and then the next tree and the next tree were igniting because of that super strong wind. It is windy in these places, but it's not nearly as windy as we saw an hour ago, or a month ago in the last fire. So we're seeing rapid fire spread, but not crazy fire spread like we saw in and around Camarillo. But look at that ridge top. That one ridge all the way paralleling the beach is currently on fire, and those are not small homes that are threatened by this fire right now. Back to you guys.
Paul, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and give you a little recap now. The fire is 2,200 acres. It started just before 11 p.m. Last night and has continued throughout the morning. This morning, with the worst of it really coming between 3 and 4 a.m. When aircraft was not able to fly. There are 700 firefighters assigned to this fire working this right now. Luckily, right now, the city says that there have been no reported injuries to people. There was one sheriff's deputy car that did start on fire and is a loss, but the deputy himself was able to get out of that situation and is safe.
And we're told 700 firefighting personnel are on scene right now, but they expect that number to grow to about 1,000. They have cooperation with multiple agencies, including Ventura County, LA County, the Pepperdine Fire Department, Orange County fire crews. They have an aerial assault happening at the same time, and you can see the perspective as we zoom out. You see how smoky it is there, and Paul rightly pointed out that the smoke is going up vertically, which is a really good sign. Really good to see that. The sheriff, we had him on earlier. He talked about how they went door to door last night to get people out in the middle of the night. A lot of people lost communications. Their cell phones weren't working properly. We've lost some signals throughout the morning with this, and he says that there's zero tolerance for anyone going in, trying to break into the homes, burglarize property, and they will be there patrolling as well.
I think this is an important picture as we're closing out this hour to look at, is that this fire is still burning in many, many places, especially on the hillsides. And we've been seeing all that aircraft up in the air trying to put out these types of fires. But you can see how quickly it's spreading. There's very thick vegetation in these hillsides. We've had the last couple of years of rain that's actually just helped the vegetation to grow and become thicker in a number of these areas, and it just goes up so quickly. We do know as well that shelter in place at Pepperdine has been lifted as the firefight is now turning less towards some of the more populated areas of Malibu and now into the hillsides.
Yes, but they are still encouraging people to stay on campus because those roads get very congested. Those canyon roads can be hard to access on a good day, especially given the low visibility, and the fire crews and the personnel who are trying to get in there, the emergency resources. It poses a huge challenge to them.
One other thing they want homeowners to know is if you are not in the immediate area where the fire is impacting your community, please turn off your sprinklers. And it ends up putting some stress on the system, and they'd like people to, turn those off so that they don't have that stress. We do still have Santa Ana winds, as Paul was talking about, until 8 p.m. tomorrow. We'll continue to watch the whole Southern California area, but for now, this is a live look at Malibu, and we thank you for joining us for KCAL News Mornings at 9.
Hello and welcome to KCAL News at 10. I'm Amy Johnson along with Ross Palumbo.
And we begin with breaking news right now. Our continuing coverage in Malibu, where we've been covering the Franklin fire all morning long. Let's get right to the latest. The fire breaking out at 10:50 last night and quickly burning to more than 2,200 acres this morning. Mandatory evacuations and warnings are currently in place with about 18,000 people and 8,100 structures affected in those areas. Officials say evacuees can go to the Palisades Recreation Center to take shelter, while their animals can be taken to Pierce College and the Agora Animal Care Center.
That's right. And as for schools, Pepperdine University lifted its shelter-in-place protocol around 7:30 this morning, but normal operations are still suspended on the campus, meaning no classes for the day. Now, the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District has also canceled classes at all 4 Malibu schools today. Those are Malibu Elementary, Malibu Middle, Malibu High, and Webster Elementary School. Classes are also suspended at Santa Monica College.
And there are major road closures to tell you about in the area. That's PCH between Topanga Canyon Boulevard and Corral Canyon Road. Parts of Las Virgenes Road, Mulholland Highway, Malibu Canyon, and Old Topanga Canyon roads are also all shut down at this hour. All drivers, except for evacuations and emergency vehicles, are being advised to take any alternative route you can.
Yeah, we do have live team coverage from the fire zone, and Marina Jerica is tracking those dangerous Santa Ana winds. We want to begin, though, with Tina Patel. Tina.
Good morning. We are along PCH on the south end of Malibu, and behind me is one of the places where fire crews from around Southern California are staging to kind of help swap out when some of the crews who have been working all morning need a break. If you look up in the sky, you can see that thick smoke that is basically blanketing the entire community of Malibu. The good news, though, this morning is we are not seeing the winds that we were seeing in the overnight hours, and we're not seeing as much of the active flame. It seems like a lot of that now has moved to the less populated areas in the hillsides. I want to show you some video from early this morning because this fire grew very quickly. It started just before 11 last night, and within a few hours, it had spread to more than 2,000 acres. Hundreds of people had to be evacuated, many of them in the middle of the night. The one thing that we can tell you is that sheriff's deputies tell us no one was injured in this fire. They said it seems like a lot of people did pay attention to those evacuation warnings. Partly, some people tell us, because they have lived in Malibu before. They have lived through fires. They know how dangerous they can be. Also because there was a good warning about the red flag conditions, and people who were living in this area didn't necessarily expect there to be a fire, but they knew that it was very windy. So when they got that alert, they knew they only had minutes to pack up and go. We talked to one man who lives along Carbon Canyon. It does not appear that any of the homes in that area were damaged, but it looked very close, the fire on just one ridge over. Here's what he told us as he was packing up and getting ready to go.
I've seen it before, actually 20 years ago. The same area burned, so it came down this way, so it's pretty familiar. I've lived in Malibu for 25 years. This is about the 3rd or 4th fire. This is a pretty big one. I think that's why we need to get out of here, because it's spreading everywhere and there's not enough resources, clearly. And as you know, they're not going to bring the super scoopers until sunrise.
The good news now that it is daylight is we are seeing a lot of aircraft in the air, both helicopters dropping water and also those big scoopers and tankers. The winds have died down through much of the morning, and so the aircraft has been up there being very aggressive, trying to get a hold on this fire as quickly as they can. As we said, there were some homes that were damaged, but we don't have an estimate right now. What we have been told by firefighters is that the firefight overnight, was very aggressive and they were able to save a lot of properties, and they're hoping that that will be the case as the day goes on. But we want to check in right now with Rick Montanez because he is at one of those spots where you can see how close the building or how close the fire came to buildings. Rick, what are you seeing where you are?
Yeah, Tina, we are on Civic Center Way, which is just down the street from Malibu City Hall. What we want to show you first, though, before we talk about these buildings, is that smoke plume that we've seen start to go up into the sky within the last 10 minutes or so, really starting to get a lot bigger. And you see it's a lot of gray smoke. We were seeing white smoke, which is the good news. but you see how a lot of that dark smoke's coming up. So that fire line on the other side of the ridge there, likely hitting some vegetation, some fuel to continue burning. But what we're seeing here, you see in the foreground, are those foothills here where the ground is absolutely charred, but those buildings in front of us, everything we can see has been saved, a testament to the work that fire crews were putting in overnight. So let's show you some more video from out here so you could see just how treacherous conditions were here. I mean, we were talking about very strong winds, big flames. Things were moving very quickly and changing at a rapid pace. So these fire crews really had a lot of things to contend with. Also, the rugged terrain out here, that did not help, and it being nighttime, certainly difficult for these fire crews to see everything around them as they continue their work. We were here this morning getting ready for our first live report in the 5 a.m. hour. When we were setting up on Malibu Canyon Road, we came across a Pepperdine student who was walking up the street by herself. She said she was trying to find her family who was there to pick her up, but she was nowhere near them. She talked with us about what it was like to be on campus during that shelter-in-place order.
It was really scary. Everyone is really upset and scared, and no one really knows what's going on. And we see all the windows and we see the fire, and we don't really know what to do. And the Wi-Fi's out, the power's out, so I think
the signal's so spotty here that's hard to communicate.
Exactly. So I think we're all just in a time of hectic and craziness.
Yeah, Helen there, a junior at Pepperdine, scared. She had never been through a situation like that. You're looking at the smoke plume continuing to burn for this fire here that has scorched a lot of earth here in Malibu since late last night when the fire first started. You know, one of the things that we want to point out too is Helen said she had never been in a situation like this. She didn't really know what she was doing. She was trying to find her ride. We actually helped her get a ride. We took her down to the road closure where the CHP had PCH shut down so she can get out of the area safely. It's unnerving for a lot of people who are dealing with this for the first time. Certainly still scary at times for people like us who have been out here routinely. So just dangerous situation here in Malibu. Back to you.
You know, Rick, I know you've been out there for several hours all morning long. We had that scare with the students, and you were just talking about some people that live there, how terrifying this can be. What is it like right now with all those evacuations, 18,000 people, not many people around you? Does it seem like it's starting to calm down immediately around you when it comes to the fears?
Yeah, Ross, you know, it's odd to feel the calm after so much chaos in those overnight hours. Sparkle, if you wouldn't mind going down and showing the fence here, we saw the flames move all the way up here. The good thing is we did not see a lot of people coming through here because they had evacuated from here. So, you know, that's the important thing is when they give these orders, it's to get you out of the way as well so that fire crews can work. So when the flames came through here, they didn't have other vehicles to contend with. They didn't have people to get in the way. They were able to just get in place and put those flames out. And so at this point right now, we are seeing a calm through the area where we are, again, near City Hall. But again, we know that up in the mountains, that is where there is a lot of work still for firefighters.
Absolutely, Rick. Thank you so much. And the strong winds and dry conditions are major obstacles for firefighters on that fire line. Assignment Manager Mark Liu live at the desk with the details on what fire crews are dealing with now. Mark.
Well, I'll tell you, they're putting a lot of work into this fire. Over 700 fire personnel on the ground, 150 LA County Sheriff's deputies doing work, including evacuations and traffic control. And then there are at least 4 fixed-wing aircraft that are dropping water and retardant on this fire, and 5 water-dropping helicopters, all working in tandem to get this fire controlled as soon as possible. Now, at a news conference just a few hours ago, LA County Fire Chief Anthony Maroney talked about the challenges facing the firefighters on the ground. Take a listen.
This fire is not contained, and we remain under an immediate threat because of the red flag conditions. The current red flag alert is projected to continue through Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. for strong winds and low humidities. And the cause of the fire is unknown at this time, but it is under active investigation by the Los Angeles County Fire and Sheriff's arson investigators.
Now, this is a really unique view of the fire that was released by the Quick Reaction Force Program. That is a conglomeration of Southern California Edison, LA County Fire, Ventura County Fire, and Orange County Fire aerial resources. They all work together and pool their resources on major brush fires like this one. Now, this is infrared video of the beginning of the Franklin fire. This was shot at about 6 this morning. And all of these really bright areas are areas of heat that the spotter helicopter could see. Copter 76 is used to guide other helicopters and ground crews into the fire. And what you're seeing now is about 30 minutes later. This is the northern flank of the fire near Piuma Road. You can see the long fire line. At one point, this was about 2.5 miles long this morning of fire line and all of those heat signatures down there. This is what the aerial firefighting attack helicopters needed to get their water drops on. And you're going to see these structures here. I'm going to show you just a second on the map on Piuma Road. They so far were able to save these large homes up here. And I'm going to show you on the map a better strategic view of the fire. So what we're looking at here is the CAL FIRE website of the Franklin fire. Now, CAL FIRE is our state firefighting agency. They're not the ones actually leading this firefight, but they are aggregating all of the data here, including these voluntary evacuation zones here in the yellow, the mandatory evacuation zone in the red, and then this orange footprint I want to focus on. This is where the fire has burned this morning. Started right here in Malibu Canyon Road, right by the tunnel, and then spread to the south and to the east and west. Now, right here is Pepperdine University. They're very concerned about this. This morning, Pepperdine went into a shelter-in-place situation, but it has since been lifted. They put fire resources all along here and were able to save all of the buildings at Pepperdine, although some vegetation did burn. Now, Rick Montanez, he was down here in the southern flank of the fire, and he was right about here. And there are homes that did burn up in this area right here and potentially over here in the Sweetwater Canyon area. Fire got very close to Pacific Coast Highway. At one point, they said it was about 500 yards from the restaurant called Nobu down there. It's pretty famous. And then this area up here, this northern flank of the fire along Piuma Road, is where the bulk of the firefighting resources are now focused. Those large white billowing clouds that we saw coming up, the smoke, I should say, coming up from the fire line, that's this region as the fire continues to move to the north and the northeast. It's steep, rugged terrain, lots of thick vegetation there, lots of fuel to burn, and the firefighting resources and hand crews on the ground are focusing on that area to stop it from moving any further north. 2,200 acres and 0% containment right now. That's it here from the desk. I'll send it back to you.
And Mark, as you say, steep, rugged terrain. It's a good thing we have such a strong Air Force out there, right? Those tankers really making a significant impact right now.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot, Mark. So we've heard all morning long that the wind is really the most significant portion of the fire at this hour.
That's right. That's right. Meteorologist Marina Jerica joining us now with an update on those dangerous Santa Ana conditions. Marina.
Thank you, Amy and Ross. We are looking at improvements in these conditions. It is really the peak all the way until about midday today, and then we'll start to see those winds gradually take their time to diminish. But what I'm noticing now is that we're getting a more easterly component to this wind, which you can see really nicely here into that Malibu area. And once we lose the northerly component to a Santa Ana wind, it starts to weaken. And so that is a welcomed relief that we're starting to shift this into a more easterly direction. But of course, the wind gusts have been very strong still, anywhere upwards of 56 miles per hour in Moore Park and Camarillo, 42 in Santa Paula, 49 in Oxnard, 54 in Simi Valley, and right now 19 in Malibu. And that has just been a progressive, positive direction that those winds have been going here over the last couple of hours. But temperatures are in the upper 50s, mid 60s. This isn't a really warm Santa Ana wind event because we have a lot of cold air aloft, but gusts have been up to 40, but the humidity still 5 to 10%, and it will actually get to its lowest levels by tonight. So the peak of the winds are this morning, and the good news is we're in the home stretch here for the worst of it until about midday. Winds are going to be strong into this afternoon and evening, but diminishing, and then humidity levels, are going to stay at 5 to 10% into tomorrow, keeping that fire danger threat for really our entire region. And so that's why we have the red flag warning, just really the LA Metro excluded from this through tomorrow night. So we're going to have to be very careful and cognizant as we move into the next 36 hours. Back to you.
All right, Marina, certainly A lot of folks still on edge. Well, still ahead on KCAL News at 10.
We're going to be talking about fire insurance and what all of this means for the homes and the homeowners being affected by the Franklin fire. We're going to speak to an expert live about what you need to know if you are currently in that fire zone.